right now. I was optimistic the entire time, but man, this is getting bad. All right. So reading the title, y'all already see, man, WNBA offered no proposal at critical CBA meeting. I mean, the owners are like, yo, we gave our last proposal. It is what it is. Take it or leave it. Now, I won't read the whole thing. I will summarize it because I read through it already. And I just wanted to pick out some of the...
On Monday, the WNBA players and owners finally met face-to-face at league headquarters in New York City for a high-stakes 3-hour session. But after weeks of waiting, and 6 weeks after the union had already submitted its counterproposal, the league came to the table with nothing. No new offer, no revised proposal, just a vague assurance that they'd start working on an official response soon. After all that buildup, it was a meeting without substance, leaving the union still waiting for real movement.
Oh my goodness. Now, Kelsey Plum did say she just wanted to get in front of the owners, have a heart-to-heart, have a conversation with them. And I guess that's what this meeting really was, man. It was nothing new. It was just going over how they felt about the first meeting or that last meeting that they had, right? Now, it's crazy because Kelsey Plum and Fee did not make it to this meeting in person.
Nneka Ogwumike, the union president, summed it up perfectly afterward. She said it set the tone for the whole conversation because the players had been hoping to hear something different. And honestly, calling this situation messy is putting it lightly. This was the first time players met in person with the league and ownership since last fall, and about 6 weeks after the union submitted its last proposal. 6 weeks. That's a long time to wait without a real response. At Monday's meeting, the league didn't counter the players' proposal. Instead, they told the union they'd start working on an official response. Ogwumike later said they had already received that same message at a prior meeting. For anyone who cares about the league, that's genuinely concerning. At this pace, questions about whether the 2026 WNBA season will happen on schedule feel very real. The optics of the meeting made things worse. Two of the most prominent voices in these negotiations, Kelsey Plum and Breanna Stewart, weren't even in the room. They joined via Zoom. Reports say they were supposed to attend in person, but had flight issues. Flight issues, of all things. It's not just a delay. It's a signal of how fragile and uncertain these negotiations have become.
It was the first time players met in person with the league and members of ownership since the fall, and roughly 6 weeks since the union's last proposal was sent. 6 weeks. This is crazy. The WNBA did not counter the players' proposal at Monday's meeting. Instead, it was communicated to the union on Monday that the league would begin working on an official response to their proposal. Now, Nneka ended up stating that they told them this.
Think about that for a second. 2 days before one of the most important meetings in WNBA history, and two of the top union leaders couldn't make it to New York City in person. Nneka Ogwumike was there. Aya Wilson made it. Brianna Turner showed up. But Breanna Stewart and Kelsey Plum, the two voices most vocal about needing a face-to-face meeting with ownership, had to join from a laptop screen. Now, let's break down who was actually in the room, because the details matter. On the players' side, for people who were physically present, Nneka Ogwumike, Aya Wilson, Breanna Turner, and Stephanie Dolson. The absence of Stewart and Plum highlights just how unusual and tense this meeting was, given the stakes and the expectation that key leaders would be there in person.
She said earlier in the day it was reported by ESPN that strong debate was occurring among members of the WNBPA's 7-team executive committee. According to this report, one group believes now is the time to stand firm in the pursuit of a revamped revenue model. The other group, meanwhile, is less inclined to pursue a strike. Hey man, here it is. Here it is, man. You have half saying, let's get it done. You have half saying, hey, hold out just a tad bit longer. I knew this was coming, man.
Then on Zoom, you had Kelsey Plum, Breanna Stewart, Elizabeth Williams, and roughly 40 other players tuning in. That shows the level of interest from the rank and file. Players want to know what's happening with their futures, and they're paying close attention. Now, compare that to the ownership side. The contrast is striking. Only 4 people showed up in person: the owners of the Connecticut Sun, the Seattle Storm, the New York Liberty, and one other representative. The difference in presence highlights just how unbalanced the room was: a large group of players, both in person and online, versus a very small group of owners physically at the table.
I mean, you have players who don't necessarily have these endorsements that they could just live off of while they're fighting for this new CBA, right? So I can only imagine that some players are like, yo, look, this is more money than I've ever seen on a contract. We need to go ahead and do it. But then you have some of them saying, you know, look, if they're willing to give us this, just imagine how much we're worth. So I understand that too, but man.
Matt Ishbia from the Mercury joined via Zoom, and that was it. That's the full representation from the league, the group supposedly negotiating in good faith to keep the season on track. This was already shaping up to be complicated. And earlier that same day, ESPN dropped a report that should worry anyone who wants to see WNBA basketball this year. According to their sources, the WNBPA's 17-member executive committee is having a serious internal debate. The committee is essentially splitting into two camps, signaling cracks within the union leadership at the very moment the league needs unity.
Because it was a waste of time, y'all coming into this meeting without a new proposal. But at the end of the day, I mean, Kelsey Plum did state that she just wanted to get in front of the owners and have a heart-to-heart. Honestly, maybe this was needed because the league or the owners were not answering you guys at all. They were ignoring you all. But now it seems like they're working on an official proposal. So maybe this meeting was needed. Maybe the owners heard them out a tad bit more. I don't know. We're going to see if a new proposal or counter proposal.
Here's where things get tense. Inside the WNBPA Executive Committee, sources say there are two camps forming. One group wants to push hard and hold firm on the revenue-sharing model they've demanded for years. The other is less willing to risk a strike. They're looking at the league's current offer, the biggest financial package in WNBA history, and asking if walking away is really worth it. Union leaders Nneka Ogwumike and Aya Wilson immediately denied any division. They insisted the union is united, that everyone is on the same page, and there's no internal conflict. But here's the thing about statements like that. ESPN's report didn't come out of nowhere. They have sources inside the executive committee. When a major outlet reports division and the union responds with a strong denial, it usually means there is some truth. They're just trying to control the narrative. Think about the positions of the players involved. Superstars like Breanna Stewart, Kelsey Plum, and Nneka Ogwumike have big endorsement deals, lucrative overseas contracts, and financial security beyond their WNBA salaries. They can afford to hold out, even if it means missing part or all of a season. But what about the majority of the league? Players making $75,000 without shoe deals or international contracts. For them, the league's offer is life-changing, the biggest professional paycheck many have ever received. And now they're being asked to risk all of that for a revenue-sharing model they may never see fully realized. That's the real tension. It's not about principle or loyalty. It's about the very different financial realities players face depending on their status in the league. And what did the owners actually communicate in that 3-hour meeting? According to reports, they admitted right at the start that they didn't even have a proposal prepared. They didn't even wait for the players to speak. Right at the start, the owners put it on the table. We don't have anything new for you today. Instead, they said they'd begin working on an official response to the union's last proposal. Begin working 6 weeks after receiving it. That's the timeline, and Nneka Ogwumike said it set the tone for the entire conversation. You can understand why the players wanted this meeting. Kelsey Plum said she specifically wanted a face-to-face, a heart-to-heart with ownership, to discuss the league's future. And the owners essentially opened with, "Yeah, we'll get back to you eventually." That's a hard pill to swallow. Here's what's really happening. This is classic high-stakes negotiation psychology. The owners are playing a deliberate waiting game. They've already put their best offer on the table: significant salary increases, charter flights, better working conditions, and improvements across the board. Now they're letting time pressure build on the players. Every day that passes is one day closer to the season start. Every week adds more anxiety for players worried about paychecks. The owners know time is on their side. They know internal divisions in the union will grow as the clock ticks. They know financially vulnerable players will start pushing leadership to accept the deal. Why present a new proposal? Why negotiate against themselves when the current offer already benefits them? That's what Aya Wilson and Nneka Agwamike were calling disrespectful, a lack of urgency. From the owner's perspective, this isn't a crisis. They're comfortable. They have the resources to wait. Still, there's a glimmer of hope. Caitlin Clark recently said on NBC that a deal could be reached within the next few weeks. She sounded confident, a rare note of optimism amid a tense, drawn-out negotiation. She sounded confident, like someone who's been following the talks closely and has a sense of where things might be headed. Maybe she's right. Maybe the owners are working on that official response, and maybe it'll be enough to close the gap. But here's the caution. Caitlin Clark isn't at these meetings. She isn't in the negotiation room. She's hearing things secondhand, just like the rest of us. What she's hearing could be optimistic reports from veteran players trying to keep everyone calm, or reassurances from union leadership to prevent rookies from panicking. That doesn't necessarily mean a deal is actually close. Zooming out, the stakes go far beyond salaries and revenue sharing. This is about the WNBA's fundamental business model and whether it can sustain the growth the players are demanding. The league's current offer is huge. Salary increases that more than double what most players make, charter flights for teams, better facilities, increased benefits. It's a major financial commitment. And yet, the players are saying it's not enough. They want a share of revenue. They want to be partners, not just employees. In theory, that sounds appealing. But here's the practical problem the owners are pointing to. The WNBA still isn't consistently profitable. Most teams lose money, and the league has relied on NBA subsidies for its entire existence. When players demand revenue sharing, owners are looking at the books and asking, what revenue are we actually sharing? The players see media deals, rising attendance, and cultural momentum and believe the money is there. The owners see balance sheets, operating costs, and long-term projections and say, we're already stretching to make this offer work. That's the core disconnect. Optimism versus financial reality. It's why these negotiations are so tense and why a solution isn't simple.